Hello out there, friends. Mr. Strange here, and today I'm going to be talking to you about what an exhaust should look like if it's fired inside of a vacuum chamber. And this over here is the LEM's engine as they were testing it, and it was done inside of a vacuum chamber. So what you're seeing here is the exhaust coming out the test engine inside of a vacuum chamber. Now, it's interesting, isn't it, there, friends, that when Apollo 11 and all the rest of them there took off from the so-called lunar surface, that you see no visible plume whatsoever. See, but this is what you're supposed to see. This was test fired in a vacuum chamber, and I'm going to prove it to you. So, without further ado, like I always like to say to them crazy fans out there, roll this little clip here, please.
One of my other examples included this photo of the LEM descent engine being tested in a vacuum chamber. The plume is quite bright and very noticeable, and would stand out like a sore thumb against a black background. Interestingly, not one member from the pro-NASA side has dared comment on this vacuum chamber picture. Instead, it seems they'd much rather focus on the videos of the LEM engine being tested in an atmosphere and the launch of the Titan II rockets. They allege that what we see is some kind of interaction of the exhaust gases with the atmosphere, possibly a secondary combustion taking place.
Now this is the kind of color that the exhaust gases should look like when they're coming out of a rocket engine. And take this for example right down here, you see that there, eh? Well, that's burning in the vacuum of space. Oh, they can't go telling you that flames don't have any color now, do they? Because they certainly do, and this is from NASA's own archive. So they can't go telling you this, they can't go telling you that, and they can't tell you that there's no such thing as flames that you cannot see. So when we look at the LEM taking off, what do we see when it's taken off from the so-called moon? We see nothing. Whoa, we see no flame, we see diddly squat. And that's the whole problem that I have here. Now, you just see that first film there that I showed you there, how an engine burns in the vacuum of space. Now I'm just showing you this one here so that you can see what flames are supposed to look like coming out of that cotton-picking engine there that's supposed to be on the surface of the moon, when in fact it only got pulled up by bungee cords. You know, the bungee cord, the bungee cord. Oh, certainly did there now. See, no LEM landed on any moon. That's just all a fantasy in somebody's mind. And that's what these dudes in Hollywood are all good for doing, aren't they, their friends? Oh, they certainly are. So, I'd like to show you another little clip here before we start heading out. And without further ado, as I like saying to those cotton-picking fans there, roll the film.
For the ascent and descent engines were fitted with nozzle extensions, and which is absent in this vacuum test. In a vacuum, this extension would allow the plume to expand and cool somewhat before exiting, and this in turn means that the exit plume will be of a dimmer colour. But how much dimmer? In thermodynamics, there's a principle called thermal radiation, which tells you how hot something is based on its colour. In both the Titan launches and the ground-based atmospheric tests, and also in the vacuum test, we see the exit plume as either white or yellowish white. On this temperature color chart, this places the plume as being slightly over 5000 Kelvin. Looking at the nozzle extension, the width of the base appears to be about 1.6 times wider than the top, making its area 2.5 times larger. This means the exhaust pressure can reduce itself 2.5 times before leaving the extension. Now there's also another thermodynamics process called adiabatic cooling that describes how a gas cools when it expands. Without getting overly detailed, there's a formula that tells us how much the temperature will change based on the change in volume and the type of gas. For nitrogen, it works out to be 3466 Kelvin. For carbon dioxide and water, it comes to 3684 Kelvin. We'll say an average of 3500 Kelvin then. Referring back to our temperature color chart, 3500 Kelvin corresponds to a light orangish yellow. Bottom line then, we'd expect at least an orange plume to be emerging from the LEM nozzle extension, and this is clearly not the case.
No, that clearly was not the case now, was it there, friends? It certainly was not indeed. So that means that we have a problem here, doesn't it, dear friends? It looks like we have been once again lied to by the NASA administration yet again. Now, I wonder what these lots going to try to say this time to get their arses out of this one here. Oh, I know, their old Bertie Slack there and his crazy mouthpiece there, Pop Robson. They'll say that, oh, the Flames just did this and the Flames did that, and they'll give a 500-word sermon saying this and saying that and saying the other thing. But what they don't realize is that a picture is worth 1,000 words, isn't it, dear friends? It certainly is, and what I see is not telling me very much. It's telling me that the LEM was pulled up on a bungee cord after a bunch of sparklers were lit. Oh, it certainly is, I'll tell you that much right now. Whoa, but before we show the next little clip here, can't forget, we got an intermission for you, so pay attention now. It's real important, okay there, friends? Whoa, roll the intermission. Back to the show. So here we have some examples for you of some engines that are burning here and the gases and the colors that they produce. Yes, indeed, friends. So you see down here, you can see the gases coming out of this here rocket down here, right, which is burning in oxygen. And you can see this here rocket up here, there, that's kind of burning out there in space. And then you can see the rocket way down here, right? That's the LEM test rocket, the lower ascent stage. That is being tested in a vacuum chamber. Now, what do you all think? Don't you think that NASA's been lying to us about these LEMs taking off from the so-called moon, and we don't get to see any exhaust or colors or gases or anything coming out of them LEMs except a bunch of firecrackers that have been lit off just before the bungee cord pulls it up? Oh, certainly is now. Oh, NASA, you guys are one big clown show. Oh, you certainly are. But before we go here, I've got to show you one last little clip here, right there, friends. So, without further ado here, like I always like to say to them crazy cotton picking pans, roll the next clip.
The Delta II rockets used a two-stage propulsion system, the first of which was a kerosene and liquid oxygen mixture, and solid rocket boosters, while the second stage uses Aerozine 50 and dinitrogen tetroxide, the same propellants used by the LEM. McConnell directed my attention to this video showing a Delta II launch as recorded by a side-mounted camera, all the way to the start of the second stage. In the first stage, we see the liftoff with the kerosene and solid rocket boosters. Then comes an intermediate phase where small vernier thrusters are firing for altitude adjustment. I'm not sure what type of fuel they used, but you can make out their bursts of yellow flame now and then. Then the first stage detaches, and the second stage's hypergolic engine fires up. Here we see a yellow-orange fireball, followed by an apparently invisible exhaust as the craft accelerates away. So does this mean the exhaust is invisible after all? Unfortunately, the placement of the camera isn't giving us a full picture. Referring back to our vacuum test picture, we see small amounts of exhaust spraying out to the side. While not invisible, this spray would be harder to see when looking through it from above, rather than edge on. Directly under the engine bell though, the exhaust is quite bright. Presumably, it would be the same for the Delta II, except the positioning of this camera doesn't permit this view, so we can't conclude much from this. I did some searching around and found some videos from the ground-based cameras that tracked the launch of the Delta IIs.
735 miles per hour, standing by for main engine cutoff about 10 seconds from now. Vernier engine chamber pressure beginning to drop as main engine chamber pressure beginning to drop. Standing by for MECO. And we have VECO standing by for 1-2 SEP. And we have 1-2 SEP. And second stage chamber pressure is increasing. Good burn on the second stage. And we have fairing separation. Second stage chamber pressure now right where we want it to be. Very good burn on the second stage. 4 minutes.
Viewed from the ground, the second stage plume clearly burns like a torch. It's just like the LEM vacuum chamber tests and the Titan launches. Propagandists are fond of citing the Delta II second stage as proof for their cause, yet they only show us the footage from the onboard cameras, not the ground-based cameras that obviously have a clearer view of the engine plume.
We got separation, second stage chamber pressure beginning to build.
Well, the only chamber pressure that's beginning to build is my nerves. And that's exactly what NASA does to you. It really gets on your nerves, this administration does, because all they do is lie and lie and lie and tell more lies, and then that lies just gets propagated all around the internet, and it comes right back down to that crazy Pop Robson, Slackass's pet Easter Bunny, and Slackass himself, good old Bertie Slack. Yes, indeed, Slackass. Whoa, those two guys are the biggest cotton-picking liars on this cotton-picking channel. They certainly are. YouTube channel, they are the biggest liars and bamboozlists and con artists that there is out there. They certainly are. So if you ever run into them, you don't listen to any other cotton-picking nonsense, because they'll have you going right around in circles and believing all this crap here that NASA's trying to shovel out into your ears at the speed of sound. So that's my warning to you all, and we all care about you out there. No, don't you go thinking that we don't. Yeah, so that's my spiel for today. Oh, that's Mr. Strange out.